PUSD Governing Board meeting at 5 o'clock, starting at 5 o'clock, June 25th, to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Sarah, do we have anybody online or on the phone at all?
No, we do not.
Okay. We have 4 board members. This is a quorum. I'd like to take an approval for the agenda. Consider approval of the agenda as presented.
I make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion is seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Nay.
opposed? Excuse me. You have a nay of the agenda?
Or a nay.
Okay. You have a nay for
The
approval
agenda.
of the agenda? Okay. All right. This passes 3-1 with a nay vote. I'll take the approval for our minutes. Consider approving the minutes from the study session and regular study and voting session meetings of May 7th, 2024 as presented. I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes pass. Information only items. Item 6 for those that are following along. Item 6A, summary of current events. Superintendent Tenney.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. We got just a handful of things that have happened recently. One of the most significant was we had the 105th, I believe, graduation from Prescott High School on May 24th. We had about 312 graduates, and brings our total number of PHS alumni to over 26,000. It's a great event, a great opportunity to honor our students who put in 13 hard years of work and met all the requirements to graduate from Prescott High School. We wish them well, and thanks to board members for being there and supporting them as well. Next relatively recent event we had, Ellen Basher is our outdoor learning coordinator that works for PUSD in the city of Prescott. She does so many great things for us, helping kids connect with state standards and nature at the same time. And she was honored with one of our challenge coins. Stan, do you want to address that really quick? Or would you?
Yeah, so we have a governing board challenge coin, and we do take nominations. Nominations is kind of a formality, but it's somebody from the district or from the governing board has to nominate, and there's a great write-up for every one of them, and so they receive that. And if you know the history of the coin, back in World War I, the coin was presented as a token of what's called esprit de corps. It's a French term which means fellowship. And so, as a token of our fellowship among the school board, we present the coin to those that excel, and we like to recognize them. And Ellen, by far, excels among many of us within the school district. So it was a great, great honor to be able to do that.
She's spectacular. We love the way she supports teachers and helps kids learn. She coordinated our entire 5th grade camp. It's another recent event that went so well. We're working with her a little bit on the enthusiasm thing, but once we can get over that hump together, she's going to be just about perfect. We love Ellen. Next, this is the roof and ceiling of Abiyah in the main hallway in the library right now. Some of you are aware that in late November, we noticed, wow, that ceiling seems to be sagging in our newest building by far. The campus that we're on here, the main building, is 112 years old, and we go all the way up through the years. We've got a 106-year-old building, an 83-year-old building, up to Abiyah is our newest building by quite a bit, actually. It's 35 years old, which, if I'm told, is, I think she'd be okay with this, 1 year older than the principal of that school. But this is our newest building, and it is literally falling apart. The roof trusses that hold everything together above the library started to fail. We noticed that and got some engineers to come in back in late November, early December, shore things up so that we're able to safely use the school other than the library for the rest of the school year. Going through the state facilities division to have repairs like this funded is a difficult procedure. Brian Moore went to bat and spent a ton of time making sure that we were able to get this in a timely fashion. It was looking for a long time like this was going to be repaired. Well, we would have money available to repair it whenever we had a 6-week period of time that no one was in the building after this summer. So that meant that the library would have been closed the entire ensuing school year. That was not good enough for us. Brian spent a long time. We brought in some advocates from various places. I called in a couple of favors, and Brian did as well, and we were able to get them to fund this such that we're able to make it happen right now. So it's under construction, should be done here in a couple of weeks, and we'll be back and using that main part of our learning facility at Abaya Judd soon. We're super happy about that. And then I think the last thing I wanted to share with you is, maybe it's not there. Was it a shared thing? That's all right, no problem. Oh, look at that. How about that? Sarah knows just what's going on. Super. The board had asked earlier as we got our A designation early in the year, what are great ways to advertise this? And we've looked at doing that in multiple ways. We've done that, of course, electronically and in other ways, but one of the things that we talked about together was, what if we had a couple of billboards built? And that's a lengthy process as well, but we have a small-ish one, 6 feet by 12 feet, just off the parking lot of Granite Mountain School there along Williamson Valley Road, and this one is just off of Ruth Street on the very, very corner of the high school property. They're complete now and covered on one side and should be covered on the other side, we're told tomorrow or the next day. So we're pretty happy about that, and that's the message we've got up there now. We can trade that out as frequently as we're willing to pay a few $100s to do that. So we will not do it every couple of weeks, but we'll do it every several months to share with the community good things that are going on in our district. And that's what I've got for you.
Excellent. Anything about our Abaya Judd principal at all? Any award that she received recently?
Yes, did we not mention that in our last board meeting? If we didn't, I've been remiss. Yeah. Rachel Chunglo was named the rookie principal of the year for the state of Arizona, and that's information we've shared with our community and whatnot, but I think you're probably right. We've not announced that in a board meeting. We're super, super proud of all of our principals, and particularly Rachel, for being nominated for this award and recognized for her great work with her community there at Abaya Judd. Super, super happy about that and proud of her.
Well deserved, for sure. All right. Item 6A2, governing board members. Any current events? Andy?
I have been gone. I don't really have anything.
Gotcha. All right. Cara?
No, nothing right now.
All right.
I was just going to mention hanging out with Ellen, but Clark kind of covered that, so I'm good.
Yeah.
That was very fun.
Great.
I just wanted to ask, can you guys hear us? I can't hear.
Can you hear a little better now?
Can we hear a little?
I think it's the...
You don't want to hear?
We can turn off the air conditioning for sure. There's a trade-off, of
No,
course,
it's just
on the room temperature.
Yeah, we can't hear. I didn't even understand what Clark was saying, so.
Speak directly into the microphone.
All right. If we all do this, hopefully that'll work. Great. Thank you. Thank you. That's good feedback. And Carl, thank you for asking.
Great. The only thing that I have to add besides amazing graduation, I was really impressed by the fireworks afterwards. That was, I don't know if that's going to be a sustain, but pretty amazing deal. I did meet with Manzanita Outreach. Manzanita Outreach is providing lunches, right, for many of our districts, to include ours during the summer. They do amazing things throughout the entire county, and so we're very fortunate to have them and what they do for our kids, especially during the summer. So I just want to recognize them for that. I'm going to move on to item 7, action items, the consent agenda. Do we have anything that we would like pulled for the consent agenda?
I don't have anything I want pulled, but is there any way we can get on number 7 and number 8 a list of the types of items that we purchased from each of these? Or did you put that in the notes and I didn't look at it?
No.
These items are companies that belong to either a state cooperative or have been awarded a contract that we can piggyback on. These are companies, these are the consortiums. We don't do business with them.
I'm just curious do we buy paper? Like, just
Yes.
tell me. Paper,
Everything.
pens?
Everything.
I would just like a list.
I could send, for each of these consortiums, there's about 100 vendors that we could use. We could send you all 100 vendors for each of these and tell Ann a description of what type of things they sell, and you could look at that.
Okay, so they're just like supplies and things?
Yes, for
They're
example,
consortiums?
Omnia has Amazon on it.
Okay.
Okay.
And the other ones, the sole source, were they listed in the agenda? I am so sorry.
Yes, they were.
Of
How
what
many are
we-
there
What
sole
we got
source?
from them?
There's only 5, I believe, now. I don't have, Clark, do you have that up?
I'm pulling it up
I
right now.
I have it up.
If-
I'm looking.
If you list it, Carr, can tell you what business we do with them so that I could tell you.
Okay.
Sarah's all
That
over.
would be great. Thank you.
I had one question on the consent agenda, on the personnel report. Mr. Biner, could you explain the difference between the 301 compensation and the performance pay?
Yes. So the 301 is something that all eligible employees receive. The performance pay specifically is based on a goal, usually a professional development goal. So the total compensation for 301 is divided up. Some of it's based on the professional growth or professional goal, and others is just provided to those employees.
Okay. Do they come out of the same pot of money, or?
They do.
Okay.
Yes, they do.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or on the consent agenda? I would like to just speak on the donations. That's item 2. We have a list tonight, and again, we do appreciate everybody that does donate to our district, so we want to recognize them individually. So the following donations, this one's from the Black Bod Giving Fund for $200 to the AJ Reading Program, Hometown Lending Company for $500 to PHS Drama, Signal Hill Petroleum for $51.72 for athletics, USA Real Estate and Property Management, $500 to PHS Baseball, the Lucas Gift, which we will be speaking and recognizing next meeting, an amount of $100,000 to the PUSD Education Foundation. Ohio Pile Print Incorporated, $25.61 to PHS Athletics, the Flippin Group, $200 to Abaya Judd, Crystal Ontiveros, a donation of oil to the auto program, value of $100. Edward Kessel, a donation, 1 Delta drill press and electrical learning aids with a value of $500. Brad Bergamini, a check for $4,600 to PHS football. Brad again, $2,300 to PHS athletics. Philip and Paul Hoaxie for $25 to PHS Special Olympics. Christine Bothell, $500 to the PHS Athletic Hall of Fame. Prescott Sunrise Lions Foundation, $4,282.50 for Discovery Gardens. And the Harold James Family Trust Broadcast Studio, a check of the amount of $2,000 for Mile High. So we'd like to thank all of them for their generous donations. So with that, I'd like to consider approving the consent agenda as presented. Do we have a motion?
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
So motion is seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda passes. We're going to move on to item 7B. This is a public hearing. Do we have anybody to speak on the public hearing for the proposed budget for 2024-25? Hearing none, I will move on. Is this a voting? Sorry, which one are we looking at? This is 7, or 8C? Nah, public hearing, 7B. Okay. Yep. Do we have anything, do we have to pass this one, though? Okay. Okay, we're moving on to item 8C, study and voting session. Okay, so this is where I know most of you are here for this. There is a statement I'd like to make before we get moving. And I just want to set the stage. And I do want everybody to be courteous throughout this. I know there are emotions on various ends of the spectrum, and I just want to recognize everybody and want them to be able to be, all of us, be respectful as they deliver the information. So I just want to read this. Thank you for showing interest in this public process. Our governing board is interested in hearing from all of you who want to speak. We're also determined to maintain appropriate decorum. Please be sure that your comments are respectful and constructive, are specific to the voting item for which you have signed up to speak. If a speaker strays off topic for too long, they'll be asked to conclude their remarks. We want every person who is interested in speaking to be treated with respect and to have their full time to speak. So speakers will be called upon to the podium. This will occur in order of voting items in the order that the individuals requested to speak to each of them. As your turn comes up and the speaker approaches, please move to near the podium to ensure smooth transitions. If speakers are not ready when called, we'll move back in order and we will call you up again. Sarah, will you call the next few as we do this? Oh, you know what? Okay, I'll do that, Sarah. Thank you. We plan to give every speaker up to 3 minutes, and we will hold to that 3 minutes. If you're still speaking at 3 minutes, you'll be asked to finish your remarks. Brief, polite applause after the speaker is fine, if you're so inclined, but no shouting, please, positive or negative. While a person is at the podium, please no comments or other intentional noise such as cheering or booing from the audience during their comments. If public decorum is not maintained, we'll recess the meeting until order can be restored. Per open meeting laws, board members are not allowed to respond to public comment except to clarify misinformation if necessary. Okay. So this first one, we'll have Haley Reeder. This is for the first item, 8C1. After Haley, we'll have Andrew Baird, and then Marge Landry.
Thank you. My name is Haley Reeder. I am here addressing you as a mom of 3 boys. I am here today to ask that all members of the school board review their behaviors and the way they treat others. As a mom, I have learned many lessons, some the hard way, including the fact that kids are cute, sassy parrots. They will repeat nearly everything I say, whether I know they are listening or not. We have conversations at home about appropriate language. We also speak about the golden rule, which, in the words of my 5-year-old son, is being nice as hard as you can. We also work very hard on controlling our words and actions, even when it's most difficult. I understand that we are sometimes caught off guard or taken aback by those around us. It takes effort to display patience during times when we are caught off guard. Jamie Beckler states, "A true test of character is not how you act on your best days, but how you act on your most difficult days." I believe the importance of leading by example is a weight that we carry constantly as adults, especially when it comes to the kids in our lives. When we are faced with difficult interactions, we choose how to respond. We choose how we treat those we interact with in public, even when they are difficult interactions. I hope we can prioritize our children and commit to holding leaders to a higher standard. We need to be examples of good, and we should be able to expect that of the leaders in our community to share that mentality. Let's be sure our kids in this time have the best leaders in place, those that they can look up to and emulate. Thank you.
After Andrew, again, we'll have Marge Landry and then Elizabeth Garcia.
Thank you for having me here today. I got to move this way up, so hopefully you can hear me. My name is Andrew Baird. I am a Prescott native. Graduated from Prescott High School in 2000. I actually remember playing in this gym as an elementary school kid dominating the Lincoln Lions about in the early 90s. So let's bring back some great memories here. Sorry for those who went to Lincoln. My parents are both educators. My mom actually taught at Granite Mountain. My dad taught at Humboldt Unified School District. My wife, Brittany, who many of you know, works for the school district as a speech therapist. We have 3 kids who also go to school here. So you can say education runs in our family, and we have, we're proud to call Prescott in this district our home. Not only are the kids receiving a great education, but learning what it takes to be good humans, capable of kindness and respect for one another. We like to think this starts at home and certainly continues at school, where teachers and district leaders model the same kindness, respect, and open-mindedness towards all students in the community at large, every child, every day. Lately, we've been talking with our kids about the power of words. Words matter. How and what you communicate to others matters. You can make someone's day with a compliment or ruin their week with a bitter criticism. So imagine how one would feel shopping one night with family and a supposed leader of this district tells you to go back to your country and then uses racist language not only once but twice, all while being recorded. I've heard some say we don't know the whole story or where's the rest of the video. Doesn't matter. Words matter. And these are hateful words. It's election season, so of course one of our favorite buzzwords for the rest of the year will be transparency. People running for elected position love to use the word transparency or transparent, citing lack of transparency or I promise to be transparent. Board Member Khan, who's not here today, is no different as I see promises of transparency all over her campaign website. So in honor of this being a school board meeting, here is a definition of transparent. Transparent, adjective, easily seen through, recognized, or detected. I guess by definition, Board Member Khan is very transparent, and we're able to see through and recognize the real board member as we saw in that video. Equally as important as words are actions, and tonight I see 2 actions. First, Board Member Khan should apologize, sincerely. Apologize to the family you hatefully insulted, fellow board members you have publicly condemned your actions, and staff who have let you down, staff who you let down, and community whom you've embarrassed. Second, you should resign immediately. These are not the words or actions of a district leader, but I do agree with one slogan, our kids deserve better, and stepping down is the right thing to do. As I am skeptical Board Member Khan will take either of these actions, we the people of this community must take action ourselves and right this wrong in November. Thank you for your time.
Next we have Marge Landry, Elizabeth Garcia, and then Sandra Hernandez. Pull it way downward.
I'm short and I keep getting shorter. Thank you, Superintendent Tenney and governing board members. My name is Marge Landry, and my husband and I have lived in Prescott for the last 11 years. I come from a family of educators, and the resolution you're voting on today reflects both the values of us and of our community. It's been my experience that most Prescottonians welcome diversity and respect inclusivity. I have proudly volunteered as a reading interventionist with PUSD for the last 8 years at both Abaya Judd and Taylor Hicks Elementary School. Every teacher I've worked with reflects this resolution because our students come from all backgrounds, races, genders, and economic statuses. I grew up 2 miles from the border in a Texas community, which was predominantly Hispanic. That background has enabled me to help bilingual students during my volunteer sessions. It's very hard to believe that any governing board member holds a low opinion of Spanish speakers and their families. These children deserve an opportunity to learn without the prejudices of any board member. This is why I'm in support of the unanimous passing of this resolution to show our community where the entire school board stands for inclusivity and diversity. Voting for the resolution gives all board members the opportunity to repair the damage incurred by recent racist remarks. Thank you very much.
Next, we'll have Elizabeth Garcia, Sandra Hernandez, and Flora Hernandez.
Elizabeth's in the parking lot. She just texted. She's coming from Sedona.
We'll move. Okay, we'll come back. Okay. All right. Sandra? And after Flora, we'll have Anna Fleury.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Sandra Hernandez. My ancestors moved to Prescott in 1916. My grandma attended school at Miller Valley, graduated from Prescott High School in 1926. And my daughter currently attends school in classrooms where her great aunt attended at Lincoln Elementary, and I'm proud to be a resident at Prescott like my ancestors were. First, thanks to the governing board members, Stan Goligoski, Andy Frere, Jane Robertson, as well as Superintendent Clark Tenney for both publicly and privately expressing the disapproval and disappointment in the behavior and actions of governing board member Linda Kahn. Our community, which goes beyond all of us here tonight, have taken note. We will remember your courage and desire to stand up for what's right. Those of you running for re-election, many of us support you, and we will advocate for your success in the campaign. Please know that you will have my personal vote as well as that of many others. Kara Woods, many of us are super disappointed that you ignored our countless voicemails and letters to you as an elected official to represent us. That gives me all the more reason to hope that you're not successful in your desire to be elected as Yavapai County Superintendent. You should respond to the public.
Sandra, keep it to the, if you would.
Okay, you need to respond to the public you represent. Linda, we're here because of you. This isn't a political agenda, it's a human rights issue. This resolution before the board is because of your racist words and behavior at Costco in May. It was captured on video and you can't deny it because we all heard the words that came out of your mouth. They were racially charged and deplorable. They promote hate and division, which are things that we do not want in our community. Your claim to be the victim in this incident has never once, you claim to be the victim in this incident and have never once said that you're sorry for what you did. Own up to it. You never have the right to speak to your constituents the way that you did. Your inability to accept responsibility for your actions show a complete lack of leadership and desire to truly represent and serve the entire community, regardless of race. You are an elected official on a governing board that claims to, quote, unite families, student, and community members through positive relationships, end quote. You obviously don't apply that to your personal life. Your intention may have been to make Elizabeth feel small or less than that day, but as a result, you've ignited an unstoppable, passionate flame in many of us. We are calling you out, holding you accountable, and making your actions known to the public. We have no intention of inviting you back to sit on the dais where you can make decisions on the behalf of our children again. There is no place for racism here. Your poor example goes against what we strive to teach and model for our children daily. We aren't going away. We won't be quiet. We'll continue to speak Spanish, and we'll do all that we can to ensure that you will not be reelected to the governing board. Thank you.
Flora Hernandez, Anna Fleury, and Liz Nava. Oh, correction, Whitney Williams before Liz.
My name is Flora Hernandez. I'm a student at Lincoln Elementary. I speak English and Spanish. I am disappointed that you were a bully to Elizabeth and her daughter. We should be able to speak our languages anywhere and anytime. People should be kind to each other. We shouldn't bully people because of their language or color. We are all equal. I want people who will serve all kinds of kids, no matter their color. Please do better, Linda. Thank you.
Next we have Anna Fleury, Whitney Williams, then Liz Nava.
Hi, my name is Anna Fleury. I'm a local music educator, and I grew up in Prescott and went to some of the schools here. Everybody's hometown. We're all familiar with Prescott's nickname, and as someone who grew up here, I am proud of that title. But last month, one of our community leaders showed very plainly that she does not believe that everyone belongs here. Board member Linda Kahn, after hearing some shoppers speaking in Spanish, told them in front of a child who was with them that they should, quote, speak English, go back to their country, and called them PUTAS, which is a sexist word that translates to language too foul to repeat in this meeting. According to Channel 12 News, afterwards the child present asked her mom, "Why did that lady get so close to you? Was she going to hit you?" Prescott claims to be everybody's hometown, but if we allow bullies to continue to make decisions for us, how can we claim to be serving the needs of every child in this town? I want to be clear that this moment is about more than just the actions of one person. People are shaped by the cultures around them and the permissiveness that is allowed for this kind of behavior. The truth is that Prescott has a racially harmful history that we must intentionally contend with if we're ever going to heal from this divisiveness as a community. Looking back at historical documents, we know that Prescott was once known as, quote, the only white man's town in Arizona, and people of color were made to understand that they were not welcome in this town through targeted and horrifically violent actions. We have pictures from the 1920s when the KKK had a procession right in front of the courthouse down Goodwin Street in broad daylight. The Smoke-Eye Tribe, a group of white men that dressed up as racist caricatures of indigenous people at a time when actual indigenous people were legally banned from practicing their own cultural practices, were active until as late as the 1990s. And the Smoke-Eye Museum itself did not change its name until just 4 years ago. As someone who's lived here for the majority of my life, this is a deeply painful history to contend with. And it is easy to say that that is in the past now. But just a couple weeks ago, Prescott made national headlines when a man from our town was federally indicted after an FBI investigation discovered that he had planned to carry out a mass shooting in Atlanta at a concert with the express purpose of inciting a race war ahead of the presidential election. We have to take responsibility for the cultures that allow these kinds of beliefs and actions to arise. Racism is not just the problem of individual people or bad apples. It is a legacy that we all have to take responsibility and accountability for, especially as white people, if we truly want to heal our relationships with one another and build a more equitable future together. Race is hard to talk about, it is painful, and it's going to take time and intention to heal from our nation and our town's painful legacies. But we have to start by being honest about it, and we have to name things for what they are instead of sugarcoating and pandering to the path of least resistance.
Thanks, Sam.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say I'm calling for Board Member Linda Kahn to apologize and resign, and until such time, I'm calling for her immediate censure. Thank you.
Next we'll have Whitney Williams, Liz Nava, and Scott Badeau.
Hello, my name's Whitney Williams, and I'm in support of passing the resolution. And I want to speak as to why by sharing some statistics about the benefits of being bilingual. Over the past 40 years, the number of people in the United States who speak a language other than English at home has nearly tripled to 68 million. That's about 1 in every 5 Americans. And in many other parts of the world, bilingualism and multilingualism are even more common. In fact, more than half the world's population speaks more than one language. Here are the benefits of being bilingual. Research from York University titled Bilingual Effects on Cognitive and Linguistic Development found that bilingual children show improvements in literacy and literacy skill acquisition. Specifically, children who are better able to understand verbal and nonverbal communication. Bilingual children develop stronger overall skills in both their primary language as well as their secondary because they have so many ways to communicate and are exposed to a wider range of words and expressions. Bilinguals end up with a higher than average lexicon in their dominant tongue. Students who take foreign languages tend to score higher on standardized tests. In fact, students who studied a foreign language for 4 or more years outscored other students on the verbal and math portion of the test, according to research from College Board. Today's companies are seeking job candidates who know how to speak more than one language. In fact, research from Korn Ferry International found that nearly 9 out of every 10 headhunters in Europe, Latin America, and Asia say that being bilingual is important for success in today's job market. Research has found that bilingual children score higher than monolinguals in cognitive performance. In particular, students or children who speak multiple languages have more cognitive control and attention, according to research from psychological science. According to a study published by the American Academy of Neurology, bilingual adults develop dementia 4.5 years later than their monolingual counterparts. Research from the National Institute of Health found that bilingual children are better at switching between tasks than children who speak only one language. This is because bilinguals have to constantly switch back and forth between languages, helping them become better multitaskers. It's also been proven they can stay focused on a task for longer. Developing your child's self-confidence is extremely important. Studies have proven that bilingual children have more self-confidence. In fact, scientists from the University of Windsor found that people who study or speak more than one language had higher levels of self-esteem compared to monolinguals, or those who speak only one. Bilingual children are better at creative thinking and problem solving. Is your child an aspiring musician? A study from Northwestern University found that learning a second language fine-tunes individuals' auditory nervous systems, which proves beneficial when learning how to play an instrument. And these are just some of the variety of reasons why being bilingual helps basically PUSD's mission of every single child every day. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Next, we'll have Liz Nava, Scott Badeau, and then Elizabeth Garcia.
Good evening. My name is Liz Nava. I am 23 years old, and I have been a Prescottonian since I could remember. I was 2 when my family migrated here from a small pueblo in Mexico, and since then, this town has been our home, our safe haven, and the place that saw my siblings and I become who we are now. I'd like for you all for just 1 minute to remember the word remember. What does it mean to remember, and why should we? This town has seen much, and I fear sometimes it has a hard time remembering. As a former and proud Miller Valley Elementary School minor, I remember being surrounded by beautiful, caring, and loving people who helped me learn a brand new culture when I arrived in the States. English was not my first language, but the patience, love, and care I received is the reason I am who I am now. Remember 2010 racial tension in our town. When I was at Miller Valley, a mural was put up. Protests begun in our town. The face of the child on that mural was too dark for some. Your board stood up and decided that the child's face should not be lined because, as you said before, all children are welcome in our schools, and for that I thank you. Our children deserve to be safe, to feel safe, and to be surrounded by that same force of justice that was felt on that day that child on that Miller Valley mural was allowed to be who he was made to be. Spanish, English, Portuguese, Mandarin, Arabic, and any language these children speak bring beauty to everybody's hometown. I am now a 23-year-old first-generation Latin Mexican student at Brigham Young University who is studying to become a lawyer someday, who was supported and mentored by people who made the effort to learn about my culture as I learned about theirs. People in this very room who have been there for me and have opened their arms to help me reach my dreams. Educators who believed in who I was wanting to become. Leaders with pure intentions and incredible hearts. No matter what language barrier, they found a way to support the efforts of my immigrant parents and me. I ask tonight for everyone in this room to remember why we educate our students. Remember who we want them to become. Remember who we don't want them to become. Remember the importance of that love, patience, and understanding and belonging we want these children and their families to feel as they reach to become greater people in this life. Remember the future of our schools, and remember the future of this town, who we all now call home and who our future children and grandchildren will as well. Thank you.
Next, we have Scott Badeau, followed by Elizabeth Garcia, and then Mark Hansen.
Thank you. My name's Scott Badeau. I'm a parent of a PHS sophomore and a Mile High 8th grader. My wife was a former school nurse. I help out with the mountain bike team at Mile High, and I'm a former school board member in Colorado. All that to say that I really appreciate everything that you all do because I know how challenging it can be to raise a child in today's society as well as to help other children. One of the founding principles of the mountain bike team that I started is we build strong mind, body, and character. It's really hard to do when our community leaders are not setting forth a positive example in those ways. I watched the video of Linda's behavior, and I hoped before I hit play that it was blown out of proportion, or as some people have said, that she was set up. And I was very saddened to see her behavior was totally on her and totally unacceptable. I did not vote for her, but when I did vote in the last election, I looked at her website, and I agree with a lot of the things that she says. Our kids deserve better, but they deserve better than the very behavior that she is exhibiting. And, you know, our district values and respects the diversity of our community, but I don't feel like Linda is doing that whatsoever. So I came here tonight a little bit unsure of what the public reaction would be. I'm very pumped up to see the support thus far, but I will remind the audience that these school board members have probably taken a lot of difficult conversations in the negative, and I'm assuming there's at least one that might come up later tonight. I fully support the resolution, and I encourage nobody to object to a resolution that simply calls for respect and dignity. And the last thing is my call to action to everybody in the audience is to talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to your neighbors, not on Facebook, not on commenting on the website, not even here, but go out and change minds to replace this empty seat with somebody who will hold up the character that you desire. Thank you.
Next, we'll have Elizabeth Garcia, Mark Hansen, and do we have Pete Rosas? Pete? Okay, all right, good, thanks.
Hola a todos, mi nombre es Elizabeth Garcia. This is my first sandwich. When I came here, I came here from Mexico. My first sandwich, like I said, was Spanish, and my dad always taught me to speak my main language. I want to thank Stan, Jane, and Andy for taking the time to reach out to me when all of this happened. I am very proud of who I am. I am very proud that I am Mexican, and came here because I want to talk, because there's a lot of people who don't speak English and have been insulted like I have, and I am here to support all that people who don't have a language to say something when you get a racist comment back. I am very upset that Linda Khan isn't here. I came to show my face here because I know who I am and I know what happened that day. I want people to know that it's already 2024 and it's ready. We should be accepting other languages, other people. My daughter here was, she, unfortunately, had to go through whatever we went through that day. She didn't forget that lady. She knows that lady's name, Linda Khan, like I said, and I want all people to be accepted, not just because of your background, but I feel like it's time for everyone to know that it doesn't matter if you speak, Spanish or Russian or any other language that you speak, you should be accepted in this country already. And we should start from, the schools that we send our children to. We shouldn't have to be worrying about when we send our kids to school if a teacher is going to be, being nice or if they're being racist. I feel like they should be professional. And like Linda Khan said, we should respect and value our community. She's not doing it. I don't think she should be elected again. And again, I want my daughter to grow up in a community where she feels loved, not because of her skin color. I've gone through it, like I said, I felt racism before, and I feel like it's time for a change. We had a black president already, and I believe that in the near future we will have someone else that's not going to have, it's going to have a brown color or black, doesn't matter, like I said, but we need the change, and we need it in our schools as well. We need to see that. And I want to thank you all for coming here and listening to what I have to say, and thank you for the school for being here and listening to our comments. Thank you.
All right, next we have Mark Hansen, Pete Rosas. Am I saying that right, Pete? Rosas, all right. And Linda Moore.
Thank you. My name is Mark Hansen. I have a son at Abaya Judd Elementary. There is a famous quote out there that says, "The only necessary for evil to triumph in the world is for good men and women to do nothing." I am here speaking today because I cannot stand by and do nothing in regards to the actions of board member Linda Kahn. Linda, I'm sure you have a great resume and have done good in your life. That being said, when you choose to run as a board member representing the school district, you have a higher standard to live by, whether in a board meeting or in public. Your choice to respond in Costco with the words, "Go back to your country," is awful, damaging to our schools, damaging to our town, and the complete opposite of the character and leadership that our schools and town deserve. Furthermore, calling someone what you did and telling them you hope it gets plastered all over the internet is flat out disgusting. Your job is to take the high road and turn the other cheek. You chose not to. The damage to our town, just from the responses that I saw from the video online, include comments such as, "Prescott politics are disgusting." Of course, it's Prescott. Let me guess, she's sorry. Prescott is a racist little town. My daughter and granddaughter live there. I wish they would leave. Linda, you've caused enough damage. I want my son to grow up and love this town, free from people that obviously have deep-seated beliefs and values that don't belong here. Please stem the damage you have caused and resign. Thank you.
Next we'll have Pete Rosas, Linda Moore, and James Kimes.
Hello, governing body. Thank you so much for giving us all the opportunity to speak out on this issue. Hello, good folks. I don't have anything prepared because I really didn't get this news until very recently, although it strikes a chord with me, particularly because I am a first generation born in the United States. My parents were immigrants. Both of them were immigrants. I speak 2 languages. I had parents that spoke more than 2 languages. The idea that just because somebody is speaking another language, that they should go home, or that they don't belong, or that they are not supposed to be a part of this system. I guess I would probably bring up the idea of e pluribus unum, if anyone remembers what that actually means, right? Out of many, there's one, right? And so what that means is not out of many, there should only be just one kind. Diversity is the strength. People of different backgrounds, that's the strength, that's the background. That should be taught along with other languages, right? Someone spoke earlier to the notion that bilingualism is actually the majority outside of this country than it is the minority. We can do that here, right? Make an example of Prescott. You know, there are a lot of other places that will have their sense of diversity already for them because they're larger populations, so on and so forth. Prescott already has this sense of what was spoken to earlier, sort of a stereotype of being racist. The fact that there are people here speaking so much out against it shows that that's actually not true. I support the resolution. I would hope, well, obviously the absence of Ms. Kahn says an awful lot. I would hope that the voters of Prescott, I know I will make sure that she is not reelected. I would hope and ask the governing committee to censure her, ask her to formally apologize, and ask her to step down. You know, again, I will say e pluribus unum, right? We're all in this together, no matter what. So let's do this together and not fall prey to the reason why people came to this country in the first place, which was the mentality that was on display at Costco that day. Thank you.
Next we'll have Linda Moore, James Kimes, and Rosemary Dixon.
Hello, my name is Linda Moore. I'm a resident of Prescott, and I have a brief message. I thank you all, both staff and board, for addressing an incident of bigotry in this adopted community that I love. Thank you.
James Kimes, Rosemary Dixon, followed by Stacy Braithwaite.
Good afternoon. My name is James Kimes, resident up here for 35 years, native of Phoenix. I'm here to speak in support of the resolution. Today, the tide of hate and division threatens all of us. This election season, and indeed every day, we must individually examine our words and our deeds to make sure that we do not sow the seeds of hate and stoke the flames of division and violence. We must end hateful rhetoric and distortion of the truth that serve only to weaken our democracy. As we teach our children to stand up for pledges and anthems, let us also show them how to stand up for kindness, respect, understanding, compassion, love, understanding, justice, fairness, and humanity. In closing, I would like to read a verse about diversity. The beauty of nature comes in all colors. Let me get to my other page here. Here's my helper. Thank you. The beauties of nature come in all colors. The strengths of mankind come in many forms. Every being is wonderfully unique. All of us contribute in different ways. When we learn to honor the difference and appreciate the mix, we find harmony. Thank you very much, and to everyone who spoke, thank you. And to the mothers with the daughters, go home tonight. They're very much loved by everyone here. Thank you.
Okay. After Rosemary, we'll have Stacy Braithwaite, and that's the last person that we have scheduled to speak.
Hi, my name is Rosemary Dixon. I've lived in Prescott for 13 years, and I want to say I'm very disappointed that Ms. Khan is not here tonight. I have to say that. I support the resolution, and I'm a firm believer in public service and community service. And I'm grateful to all of you on the PUSD board for stepping up in support of our kids' education. It's so important. At the same time, serving on the board comes with a set of responsibilities perhaps more stringent than the average citizen. School board members must be role models. Telling a stranger that she should go back to her own country in the USA, which has been made strong by immigrants, in fact, is just not acceptable, no matter the circumstances, especially from an elected official. I urge you all to remember that anytime you're out in public, you are representing PUSD. Everybody knows who you are. This community is watching, and most importantly, our kids are watching. You are role models. You must not speak like that in front of anybody, in fact. And to Elizabeth and to the mother here, I just want to tell you, I'm so sorry this happened to you. I'm just so, so sorry that this happened to you in our community. Thank you.
Stacy.
Hi, I'm Stacy Braithwaite. 4 of my 5 kids graduated from PHS, and all of them took Spanish. When I was a student in Spain, I remember sitting on a corner with my friend, and we just were chit-chatting in English. That is my native tongue. Someone came up to me and said in Spanish, "Don't speak that language, speak Spanish." So I answered them in Spanish, because I am fluent also in Spanish. It made me feel bad. I came tonight to tell Elizabeth, I'm sorry for what happened. That was not kind, It was not fair. And lo siento, Prescott puede hacerlo mejor que eso. Thank you so much.
So we don't have anybody else that is scheduled to speak or has requested? Okay. We're going to move on to item 8C1. This is a did you have one?
Did you email it to me? Okay.
Give us 1 minute, we'll double check. Anybody who got with us before the voting item started, we want to hear from for sure, so give us just a second, sorry.
Is there anybody else in the audience?
Rebecca, what's your last name? Yep, okay. That's my fault. She submitted.
That's our oversight, sorry about that. Can you accommodate her?
Yes, please step forward. Thanks.
Good evening. My name's Rebecca. I want to thank you first for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm a parent in PUSD. I volunteer weekly in my children's school and dedicate time to know and love the children that walk the halls. Children are very sensitive to the words and actions of those around them. It is our responsibility as adults to teach children how to behave through our own behavior. As a leader in the schools, be it a staff member, teacher, principal, superintendent, or a board member like yourself, it is vital that children see individuals who display integrity, acceptance of others, kindness, selflessness, and all the other things that create a moral, decent, and upstanding citizen. The behavior of Linda Kahn displayed towards other members of the public did not display any of those facets of character. Not only were her words repulsive, vile, they were said in the presence of a formative child. Linda, on your website, you state that you value and respect the diversity of our community. I did not hear respect in the words that you said. I did not see any value of diversity when telling someone to go back to their country. Instead, you displayed hatred, judgment, and superiority. I'll play devil's advocate for a moment and assume it was a political ambush, like you state. First and foremost, politics have no place in education of children, period. Secondly, we'll assume these ladies were just hanging out at Costco hoping you might stop by that day. Let's say they verbally assaulted you and harassed you, attempted to frighten you or intimidate you. I get it. I too have been followed through Walmart while I had a 2-year-old with me, with a man trying to intimidate me and making comments that were unsolicited. What I did not do was get in his face and make repulsive comments. Instead, I went and got a manager and handled myself in a mature fashion that by getting proper authorities involved. Linda, you had choices. You could have walked away. You could have pulled out your phone and filmed the atrocities committed towards you. You could have gotten a manager or even called the police, but you did not choose any of those actions. You did not take the high road, and you did not behave in a manner that your position demands and requires as a leader in the school district and as a leader of our children. I, as a parent of PUSD, do not want someone that behaves in such a way, making decisions for my children. I want you to hear from me as a parent that I am standing before you and everyone else to ask that you take the high road. You own your wrong, you apologize, and you resign from your position as a PUSD board member. You do not represent what PUSD is about, nor do you represent the attitudes, beliefs, and values of the parents and families in the schools of PUSD. Board members, I want to say that I fully support the resolution that you have before you, and I encourage you to vote in favor of that to hold all board members now and in the future accountable for their actions. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to move on to item C1. This is a consideration for approving the Prescott Unified School District Governing Board's resolution, and I will read that prior. PUSD Governing Board Resolution, June 25th, 2024. Whereas Prescott Unified School District's PUSD's motto is every child, every day. Whereas PUSD serves students and families from various backgrounds, cultures, and places, and welcomes all to be educated in our district. Whereas PUSD is committed to helping all students and families thrive regardless of where they come from or their background. Whereas community members expect to be treated respectfully by PUSD governing board members in all circumstances. Whereas PUSD Board Policy BBA includes the board member responsibility, quote, to represent the board and district to the public in a manner that promotes both interest and support. Whereas PUSD Board Policy BCA includes the board member ethical requirement of, quote, take no private action that will compromise the board or administration. Therefore, be it resolved on this 25th day of June 2024 by the governing board of Prescott Unified School District Number 1 that our district stands steadfast in its commitment to foster a welcoming environment for all people in our community, and that we, as elected officials in this district, will treat all people with respect and dignity and promptly consider solutions to resolve educated-related issues that divide members of our schools and community. Do I have a motion to adopt the resolution?
I make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Is there any discussion?
I do. I have some remarks to make, if it pleases the president. First of all, thank you all for coming tonight. I think dialogue often leads to some type of consensus or agreement, so I appreciate all of you coming, no matter what side of the issue you fall on. We are proposing resolutions tonight that clarify the policies that describe our board members' code of ethics and code of conduct. The first one has to do with accepting every child from every background without regard for color, race, creed, or language. The second part emphasizes that we as governing board members should treat all of our constituents in all circumstances with respect. I would say that discrimination and intolerance can only spread throughout a community like an infection when the rest of us do not stand up. When we do not speak out, when we allow things like this to slip under the rug, which we have been asked to do tonight. It's accommodation when we do that. It's too easy. It's too easy for us to let things like this go and let them have their way and no longer talk about them and pretend like they didn't happen. That's too easy. That's accommodating. What we need to do is resist. And many of you are doing that tonight. We need to stand up, we need to be bold, and we need to remember, is that me? That the values that we share here in Prescott, whether we've been here for over 4 decades like I have, or whether you're recent arrivals, there are things like trust and compassion and respect and acceptance. Those are what we believe in. And the wonderful thing about this country that we still live in, we live in a democratic republic. We have the opportunity, we have the honor, we have the privilege of voting. And we can all vote on November the 5th. We can vote for new governing board members that respect our values. We can vote for PUSD, which accepts every child every day. We can vote for Prescott, which we like to say is everybody's hometown. And we can vote because when we vote, we still do make a difference. So thank you all for coming tonight. I appreciate all of you being here, and I appreciate all of your remarks.
Any other discussion points?
You're all waiting for my comments. I know you are, with bated breath. Again, I can't apologize for Linda Kahn. What she said was wrong. What she did was wrong. She does need to take accountability for that. There is accountability built in already in the statutes. And as Jane said, it belongs to the people because you're the ones who elected her. You're the ones that she is serving. You have accountability. You can take that. You can take that and do it. So you have two options. You can not reelect her, or you can put in a recall petition, okay? Those are great things. This resolution, right at the moment, is a repetition of our, policies already. It is a repetition of our policies, and some of you have stated in your remarks or implied in your remarks that this has gone political. It has gone to a political place where we have divided. If you don't agree with that, that's fine. I have the right of freedom of speech. I don't have the right to talk for the board, so I am just talking for myself, okay? So in my feeling, this has gone political, whether we sign this resolution or do not sign this resolution. In that case, I am very concerned that if this resolution is viewed as political by any member of the constituent, the residents of PUSD, okay, that there could be, and I'm just throwing it out there, a conflict of interest in this resolution being brought because of the election coming up. Linda is up for election, and one of the board members here who voted to bring this resolution is also up for election. So am I going to bring it as election interference? No. But I am concerned for the board's integrity that this may be seen as election interference, and therefore I just think that it has been inappropriate that we brought this resolution. I totally disagree with what Linda said. And there are methods already in the statutes for you as the public to get rid of her. Okay? So that's pretty much it. I just think it was inappropriate for this to be brought. That's why I was going to try and get it removed when we did the agenda, but it got passed through a little bit sooner than I thought. So, yeah, I totally agree that Linda was out of place, and I agree with all of our policies, which are restated in this resolution, but I feel that the resolution should not have been brought as it is a political statement.
I'd like to say something. After this incident, I asked that something be done. This incident affects the board as individuals because we are members of the body and we are cast with the same brush. And from the feedback that we've received from the community, that is true. People asked, what are you going to do about this? You have to do something about this. Unfortunately, there isn't anything that a school board can do. We have no legal authority to censure. We have no legal authority to ask anyone to resign. Our power is as a board to affect school district policy and procedures. But what we do have is the ability to state our values. And that's what this resolution is. It's a statement of values. It has nothing to do with politics. We are in the public eye. Our actions in the public eye affect us as a whole. This resolution states what we value and expect as a board and for board members. If this community doesn't value these statements that we've made, you can vote me out. If I vote for this resolution and you don't value what's in this statement, then vote me out. If you think my life depends on being on this board, it does not. I get no pay for this. It's a totally volunteer situation. I don't need to do this. But I do it because I love this community. And I think about my mom, who grew up on Marina Street. She had an African-American family that lived next door to her, one of the very few African-American families in Prescott. And she tells a story, she did tell a story, of the KKK marching down her street in front of this house. I'm a second-generation Prescottonian, and I know it wasn't that long ago that the KKK was in our city. So you can call this political if you want, but this has meaning for me. This means something to me. So if you don't like these values, if Prescott doesn't want these values stated, then vote me the hell off this board. Do it. I'll go on. I'll visit my family. I've got a new granddaughter. I don't need this. I have requested feedback from the community, just as all of us do. So if you're using that as a way to say this was somehow political, we look for feedback from the community. The people I associate with share similar views, just like the people you associate with mostly share similar views. But I've received feedback from people all across the spectrum who have told me that you need to move forward and do something. So that's where I'm at. That's why I suggested that we do something, and I wasn't the only board member that made this suggestion. Yes, I'm running for re-election. You have a choice to make. Make your choice. And if you choose not to vote for me, good on you. That's good for you. Choose the best person you think fits this role. And if my values are not what you need, kick me out. But again, remember, as a board, we are limited in what we can do. And this is about what we can do. And I just want everybody to understand that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frere. I can briefly address what we've been told about the legality of things, and this has actually been shared with Mrs. Woods, so she's familiar with this. But when we had a number of members of the public contact board members, and I think the numbers north of 70 at this point, different people saying something has to be done. I've seen the video, regardless of the context, what your board member said is not okay. Something needs to be done. Demand a resignation. Well, we can't do that. Fire her. Well, we didn't hire her. We can't do that. Censure her. That's not something that we can do either. So we had several board members who said, I'm getting a lot of feedback from the public. The public would like us to do something. What can we do? So we consulted with our district's attorney. We have an attorney on retainer. He's been practicing for over 25 years, one of the most respected education law attorneys in Arizona. And we shared this with him, and he said, well, you can have a resolution that affirms what the board feels. You should not mention the board member. You probably shouldn't mention the incident. People will all be familiar with why that's come up. You don't need to make the connection for them. But certainly the board is able to affirm what they believe. We specifically asked about the election piece, and he said this has nothing to do with that. The board regularly passes resolutions, do they not? I said, yeah, actually just a few months ago we passed one regarding ASBA leadership, right? We remember that. I can affirm for you that as board members have contacted me and asked for a resolution to be on the agenda, not one of them at any time mentioned, asked, or intimated anything about the election. As far as I am concerned, this has nothing to do with the election, and from what we've been told by a legal expert, there's absolutely nothing that we should be concerned about with voting on this resolution one way or the other. That's completely up to the board how they feel about it.
Thanks for clarifying that, Clark. So this month has really been eye-opening for me. I've never received more communication on any topic since I've been on this board than this. At first, we received a phone call asking for quotes from our local media. Quick reaction, I will not divert from my comments. I still hold true to those. However, beyond that, I learned a lot more, and it all came from you parents. I'm a parent of two Lincoln Lions, very proud, and you all your phone calls, all of your emails were asking us to be accountable. We very easily could have made one quote and be done with this and carried on with our June 25th meeting. Approved the budget, gone through the math curriculum, but that's not what it became about. The nearest date that we could do this, after hearing from all of you, was today. And you wanted us to do something as a board, not as an individual. And this resolution, the way that it was written, was specifically holding us accountable not only for how we act in the community, but that we accept every single kid every single day. That Sandra can put her child on the bus or go to the schoolyard and feel safe. That's what we do here. We talk about school safety. We talk about means to keep our kids safe. We talk about educating our kids. But nobody talks about all the things that they also have to endure when they go to school. And this is just one. And when our governing board doesn't say that we do not believe in this, today this resolution is a reaffirmation. This is a reaffirmation to you that we will abide by the policies. I work at a factory with 400 people, and I walk up and down the aisles, and for 3 weeks people ask me, what are you going to do? There are people from Guatemala, Mexico, India, you name it. What are you going to do? It wasn't an email. It wasn't a phone call. It was face-to-face. I live in this community. My kids go to these schools. What are you going to do? They're holding me accountable. I can look at policies all day long. I can join a board. I could go to work, and I have policies up the wazoo, but I never read them. Who reads all their policies? Who truly looks at every single one of their policies? It's an opportunity for us to dig into the policies and remind ourselves what we signed up for. So today, this is a reaffirmation. I quote, "Justice, fair play, treating people right, and using political power to better society are not partisan principles. They are cornerstones of our deepest traditions, of our faith, our values, and our sense of morality." That was said 10 years ago by that gentleman right there. The things that he did for our state, for him to come up here and teach us, continue to teach us, is remarkable. And all of you coming up here is remarkable. I try to abide by 2 Bible verses, John 15, verses 12 and 13. And for those that are of faith, you can look them up. But the first one is, my command is this, to love others as I have loved you. And there is no greater gift than to stand up and sacrifice your love for a friend. And we all should try to do that. We are not perfect at it. None of us are up on this board. But you know what? We can at least stand up here and do a resolution, which is the most that we can do, and tell you, we're going to take care of your kids. We're going to make sure that you have a safe place that your kids and my kids can go to when they're at school for hours on end, and I'm at work, or you're at work, or you're at home. They need to feel this. This next generation, judging by who we have and who stands up here, are going to be better than us. We bicker. We talk about whether it's a left or right issue. It wasn't a left or right issue until 48 hours ago. We got emails saying, do not do this. That's the wrong thing to do. Right, Mark? You got to stand up and do something, not do nothing. Thanks for all your comments today. I think we showed our community really who we are, and then we're not going to stand for this. I grew up in this community like many of you. I went off to a foreign land. I helped build schools for girls because they did not have an education. And I didn't say, you know what, my mission is not to build school for girls. My mission is here to make a better life for you. I didn't say you're different than me. All I'm going to do is just hide behind this wall and serve a year of my rotation and do nothing. That's not what we do. It's not what we do. When I came back to this community, I am astonished at who we are and a portion of our community who they are and how they've been infused into our community. And that's why we're up here. We need to continue to take a stand. We need to continue to reaffirm who we are and what we're going to provide for you. So right now we have a resolution and we have a motion and a second. Do we have all in favor of the resolution?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Abstain.
Reason for abstention?
Pretty much what I said. I think it's inappropriate that we have brought this because it has gone political and we are trying to keep politics out of the schools. So I abstain.
Amen to that. The resolution passes 3-0. Thank you. We are going to take a 5-minute recess. We do have further business. You are free to go at this point. You can stay for the rest of the business. It's entirely up to you, but we will be taking a 5-minute recess. Thank you. 3,000 more items to go through. Are you passing popcorn?
Popcorn, soda, popcorn.
Passing popcorn. Ask me in 30 minutes.
Drinks
Okay.
on you?
Yes.
Oh, just kidding.
Yes. All right, we're going to move on to, well, we're reconvening our school board meeting. We're going to start with 8C2, consider approving the school facilities division's terms and conditions for acceptance of monies from the Building Renewal Grant Fund for PUSD school sites as presented. Brian, you're on for like 20 more items, so here you go.
Just want me to go right in a row, and then you can just vote.
Well, we will vote.
Just normal school facilities board due to the fact that we don't receive any basic maintenance or building renewal money, so we have to go to the school facilities board. So we have 3 HVACs on here, bleachers over at Mile High, which I think are original to the school, and also Abaya Judd's truss repair that we have an emergency procurement discussion at later. So these are the terms and conditions so that we can enter into business with our with the school facilities division.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Is there any questions on this
I
item?
just want to follow up on the gym bleacher replacement. I think this is the 3rd time we've dealt with this, but the school facilities board is still funding this for us.
I think this is the first time this is Mile High's. I think you're thinking of Prescott High School.
I'm sorry.
I totally get you.
This is a different school. Thank you for clarifying that for me. Thank you.
We like to call it Hoosiers Gym.
Yeah.
Great. All right, any further discussion?
I do have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
How's the trust thingy going at Abaya Judd?
We have a discussion item on the emergency procurement, so we can talk a little bit more in detail in the discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's a good, important question, and I'll underscore when we get to it briefly, because I know we have lots of things. A lot of people went to bat, but we would have that shut down for another year if it wasn't for that man sitting right there.
Thanks, Brian.
All right. Where's the rest of the people at class? Anyway, thank you, Mr. Tenney.
AJ parents count as like 20 each.
So we got 60 applauses.
That's right. All right. I will take a motion to consider approving the school facilities division's terms and conditions for acceptance of monies from the Building Renewal Grant Fund for PUSD school sites.
So moved.
And I will second it.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes. 8C3, consider approving Arizona Administrators Code R721005 emergency purchase for the trust job at Abaya Judd Elementary School. Brian again.
All right, so this is actually the procurements because this is a purchase or spending more than $100,000 with a vendor. It needs to come to the governing board, and that's something that our auditors have. Even if it's not an IFB and RFP, it needs to come in front. So you'll be seeing a lot more of these. But this is so that Robert E. Porter could fix our roof, and it was over $100,000. It was $30,000 to fix it. So by the vote, you're approving their work and us to pay them.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions on this? Comments? Okay.
Was this the one I was supposed to ask?
Yes.
Oh, can you tell us, like, is it
Where are we at on the project?
yeah, where are we at the project?
There has not been any unforeseen obstacles, which means we are on time, and I believe the finish is the third week of July.
So we're going to hopefully be done before school starts?
With pulling every trick that we could, not anything illegal or
Yeah,
unethical, but
legal-
just
legal
knowing
ones.
exactly what to do. And the emergency procurement was the final. We got it done. Otherwise, it would have been next summer. So
Okay,
it
thank
will
you.
get done.
We
That's
had
the
some
best
people
update.
who really helped out. Again, Brian has really been advocating for this. Rachel Chunglo's been advocating for this. We know we have a lot of parents who are interested in this. It's just been too long. That's a major part of that school. It's the central learning area of that entire school. And when we learned that the timing of everything was set, and the process of the school facilities board is such that we wouldn't have the funding available until partway through summer, we wouldn't have the 6 weeks that we needed to get this done. I lost my mind. And Brian pushed on his end. We got with a local engineer who's affiliated with the State Facilities Board who really went to bat for us. I talked with a couple of people at the city, and they don't want to jump people in line ever, but our folks who work for the city are huge advocates of our schools. And they said, we'll see what we can do to make sure the permitting gets in time for you to do all the other financial pieces so that you can get approval on your end financially and get this done. And
It really was a
and
perfect storm.
a process that could take weeks and weeks took them hours. Part of that was Brian had all of the ducks in a row, and we chose just the right engineer who didn't have to have changes multiple times to what he initially submitted. It was terrific to start with, but just so many things lined up to make this work. And so, yeah, Cara, to answer your question, great question.
Thank you.
It's on schedule to be done here in just a few weeks, cleaned up, ready for the kids on the first day of school. We're super happy about that.
Perfect.
Yeah, and it, like Mr. Tenney said, a lot of people, our facilities director, Chris, I mean, just absolutely, it took everybody, and even our school facilities division's liaison, her name is Tachma. I mean, she went to they found money that was not there because the school facilities division they ran out of money in November.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks for all the work and really reaching out to others. I just love how you guys always continue to think outside the box, and use the resources around here because it's tremendous. Thank you. All right. I'll consider a motion for approving the Arizona Administrative Code R721005 emergency purchase for the trust job at Abayajud Elementary School.
So moved.
And I'll second it.
Motion seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 8C4, consider approving the proposed budget for 2024-25 as presented. Brian?
All right, and of course, my computer just went to sleep. Just a few things to note. Once again, this is the formal process that we have to go through. State forms, the timeline. Really, when it comes to the difference in spending, the board did vote on a conceptual or a philosophical budget, and so we could get contracts out. And this document is basically saying this is how many students that we are expecting. We always really budget flat. I increase the students a little bit because if we do have more students come, we need to make sure that money is in the treasurer's office. Otherwise, because we're in current year funding, our tax rate is set as of the next board meeting. So there's about 30 kid buffer in there, and the tax rate went down. So our Prescott taxpayers can know that it went down 35 0.1%. Figure out that difference. Other than that, they are making some differences. There is a fund balance page that you have never seen before on here. We're being asked to look at our rolling over fund balances. The reasons for that are unknown at this point. so I'm not going to speculate, but it's not a bad thing. Mr. Tenney and I looked at all of our accounts, said, you know, in our forest fees, this is the running balance we want, this is our role. It has not been a bad thing. It's caused dialogue that we haven't had before, but more work, but it's not bad. So really, normal budget, next will be the adopted budget votes, but this is to get it in front of yourselves. It's put online. There's a meeting notice, so everybody knows we're coming back in July, and they can speak to the budget after it's posted. So you're saying yes to the proposed budget, so that next we can adopt it.
Great. Any further discussion? Any questions? All right. Well, consider.
I'm sorry, Stan. Could I ask one question?
Yes, sir.
I've been gone, and so I don't know. Did the legislature handle the AEL?
Yes.
Is that included in this budget?
The AEL is not included in any budget.
Okay.
It's a time trigger that says we have to stop spending money.
Okay.
So AEL was waived for next year.
Okay.
So that is not, and that's a good thing. The 2% increase in our student weight that did pass. The only other thing that I will mention, because I just looked at my notes and said make sure you mention this, on page 7 there is a Prop 123 line item that does increase our budget capacity every year by about $250,000. This is the last year we're receiving this unless something's changed at the legislature. So we're already knowing next year, $250,000 is not going to come, and we're going to have to find efficiencies to cover that, or not to give as big of a raise. So that knowledge, please pass, so that hopefully our legislators can not have that be an impact on next year's budget.
Great. Thanks, Brian.
And Mr. Goligoski, if I might, just for those who are less familiar with all the acronyms we use, AEL stands for Aggregate Expenditure Limit, and it's based on a law that was passed by the legislature in the 1980s. For the percentage of the state budget that can go toward education. If it exceeds a certain amount, in spite of money having been allocated to districts, they would be unable to spend it. And the legislature either can change the Constitution, it was a constitutional amendment that did it, either change the Arizona Constitution to do away with that, which they have yet to do, or waive it every year that we might bump up against that. The aggregate amount, the total amount by which districts would exceed this limit that was set in the 1980s is hundreds of millions of dollars. And in Prescott, it'd be to the tune of hundreds of thousands, if not in the low millions of dollars that we have in the bank, that the legislature allocated to us, that taxpayers have paid, that we wouldn't be able to touch if it wasn't waived. But to answer your question, yes, as part of their budget package, they did waive it for this coming year preemptively, so they don't have to wait until the deadline in March.
That's a positive.
Yes.
All right. So I'll consider a motion to approve the proposed budget for 2024-25.
And I will make that motion.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 8C5, consider approving the list of student fees and extracurricular activity fees for the 2024-25 school year as presented. Mr. Moore?
Once again, anytime we charge fees for our students, whether it's for a field trip, whether it's a class fee, it does need to be approved by the governing board. And so this is a comprehensive list that the principals aren't saying they're going to be charged. It's the potential for charge. I think, high school is a little different because of the course fees. So the list is there, so in case the need arises. Otherwise, every time they were going to first field trip they go to, they're going to have to bring, hey, we're collecting $5 from the kids. And the next field trip would be 10. Well, that was above the 5, so we got to go back to the school board and have them vote again. So this is setting up for the school year on fees that we potentially collect from students.
Do we have any scholarships just incidentally for those? How does that work?
Yeah, when it comes to fees, it is actually per statute that we have to make concessions if there's a hardship when it comes to money. That's the same thing for after-school activities, the use of tax credits. That's actually one of the items. If there's a fee, can it be waived? So the principals handle that, and it comes to them, and they have the authority to waive.
I have one question, and maybe Adam can answer it, but I think you might have partially answered it already. The marching band fee on this list is $400. What do we actually charge the kids when they sign up for marching band?
So that's the Do you mind? Sorry.
Get your steps in.
For the thousands of people that are watching online, that'll help.
They're all
There
watching
were
you,
26.
Adam's got the coach walk.
Shocking. I was trying to avoid being over here. I was hanging out with my friends in IT. So what I was trying to say there is that is a participation fee for being part of the marching band and all that they do. So they go to all sorts of competitions and things.
Yeah.
That entails all of those different pieces right there.
Okay, so that is what they are charged initially.
Yes,
When they
yes,
start signing
not
up
for
for-
being in the class,
for being in
but
the
for
band.
being in the band,
I know I had
yes.
several kids go through that, but I don't remember it being that expensive.
Yeah, it's always been a little pricey. There's a lot that goes into that with travel and uniforms and competition, entrance
then-
fees, et cetera.
But we do have scholarship funds available for
absolutely,
kids that want to be in the band
we
that cannot.
definitely have multiple ways to help
Yep,
kids who need that help. And I would tell you that is actually a little bit lower than it was a few years ago in the prior band director.
Yeah, whether it's a kindergarten field trip or anything up to pay to play for a high school or marching band or whatnot, if there's a family who's in financial distress, we always work with them one-on-one to reduce fees, to work out a payment plan if that works for them, or in some cases, we just waive it. We want to make sure that every student who wants to participate in any one of these things is able to, regardless of their family's financial situation.
And if if it's optional and not for credit, then tax credit is eligible too. So grandparents can give $400 if married and filing jointly. And so there's many options for students that possibly need a little assistance.
I'm looking at the list, sorry. We usually have fees for people who rent the theaters and the fields and things. That is not on this list.
No, these are
we looking at
students'
that
fees.
again this year or not?
If the governing board would like for us to look at it, we have, looked at it. We did raise about 2 years ago how much we were charging, or 3 years, and
I just didn't know if it was a yearly thing that we had
it's
to okay.
not. If it changes, it needs to come in front of the governing board. If the governing board says, it's been long enough, why don't you look at that? We certainly will, but it will be pretty soon, we will be looking at it again to make sure that we're covering all of the inherent district costs, because if we don't, then it's a gift of public funds.
I was thinking, we had discussed at some point, some year, about maybe waiving that fee for the T-ball and the youth teams that use the fields to practice. Are we still charging them to practice, or do we not charge them? I don't know, and I
can
will
address that if
get
you'd
that
like.
answer
I think Mr.
later.
Tenney's the better one to answer that. I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay,
written
thank
into our
you.
policies that the superintendent has the ability to reduce or waive the fees. For instance, with the YMCA, they use our facilities regularly, but we also use theirs. Our swim team doesn't have a pool. They go to the YMCA pool, so we've got a reciprocal agreement with them. Essentially, they let us use their facilities for free, and they use ours for free. Same thing with Little Leagues and other groups. If they're nonprofit and whatnot, we can certainly reduce the fee there. In some cases, there's maintenance pieces that goes along, and we certainly don't want the taxpayers to pick up an indirect cost of grooming the field or the lights or whatnot. So we certainly charge for lights, we charge for any security pieces or damage, et cetera. But there are situations in which, and T-ball is a great example of that we don't charge them directly a very large amount and have the ability to waive it if we need to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's
Or
three-tier.
gridiron football, right? You guys, it's been great. We've spent a lot of Saturdays on those fields.
You are welcome.
And thank you.
Because
Seriously.
that was directly my doing.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So that would be a separate item that we could probably bring forward. Is that what we're kind of talking about here?
Yeah, it
Not-
doesn't-
I
doesn't have
just
anything to
wondered
do
if
with
it was
student
on
fees, but we
this or not,
certainly
and
could, yeah.
maybe we could look at it again, just
Sounds
for
good.
the heck of it.
That's great. Thank you. All right. So I will take a motion to approve the list of student fees and extracurricular fees for the 2024-25 school year.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. Motion passes. 8C6, consider adopting the 5th through 8th grade math curriculum as presented. Kelsey.
That's Kelsey.
Not Brian.
All right, good evening. We're here to talk about math again. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kelsey Secor, the Director of Instructional Support. I had the privilege of leading and facilitating our committee who looked at math adoption for 5th through 8th grade. And so we'll do a quick recap of what the committee found. Sorry.
Kelsey, I'm going to give you this. It's easier.
It's easier. I think this will work, but yeah. I just hit it too many times, sorry. So as we started our math adoption work, the goals of our committee were to get high quality materials because we know those materials impact student learning outcomes. And we know that 5th through 8th grade math has been an area that we have wanted to target and see scores improve. And so that was a big reason why we wanted to look at this particularly this year. We also wanted to ensure that every student had the opportunity to have those high quality materials and that everybody had access to the same content, knowledge, and skills in each of our 5th through 8th grade math classrooms. We also wanted to provide consistency within those classrooms and within vertical grades. So we did a lot of work to make sure that there was alignment between 5th through 8th grade math. However, just a reminder, we also included 4th grade math teachers and high school math teachers to make sure that we were aligning K-12 and that those teachers knew what was happening in our middle grades. As we started our work, we really looked at the 10 practices that the Arizona Department of Education says are essential for modernizing the math classroom. This is what every student needs to do and know in order to be a successful mathematician in today's age. And so I know you've seen these before, so I'm going to go pretty quick, but stop me if you have questions. We also, at the beginning of our work, had 7 different math curriculum options. And through that work, we narrowed it down to 2. And those 2 were Envision Math and iReady Math. And we spent 5 weeks teaching each of these 2 curriculum options. So we piloted those within our classroom. And we collected our data. Our data collection focused on student proficiency, on the essential standards that students need to know in order to be successful on state testing. We also looked at incorporating the mathematical practice standards, and if you know those mathematical practice standards, there's 8 practice standards that K-12 students need to be able to do. We looked at student feedback for the very first time in an adoption process, which was very interesting, and we also had teacher feedback through that process as well. So here's just the data that we collected. So students were taught essential standards throughout the piloting period. And you can see that these aren't specific to one standard. These were different standards taught. But on the first round of assessment, after the first round of instruction, students performed remarkably better on the iReady assessments than they did on the Envision standards. Now, the best thing about when you see those iReady percentages is that students have an opportunity for reteach, and then they can take that assessment again. So this was just after the first round of teaching how students were performing. And I will tell you, our teachers were blown away that this was the data they were collecting after one round of instruction. So they were very happy and surprised. We also had our instructional coaches who completed walkthroughs within the classroom to look at those 8 mathematical practices that we just talked about. And again, you're not going to see all of these in any walkthrough in any one point in time, but we did a variety of walkthroughs. They did multiple throughout that pilot period. And you can see that clearly iReady had a lot more of those mathematical practices embedded within the routines that were established in that curriculum. Student feedback, this is actually my favorite part of the entire data collection process because we got some really interesting feedback from our 5th through 8th graders. So we asked them, did you feel ready for that 5-question assessment that you took after instruction? And with Envision, they said yes, we did. It was more than the no's, but you can see that there was a drastic difference with iReady. A lot more students felt ready to take those assessments than they did after using the Envision materials. We also asked them if the curriculum was interesting and motivating. We know that that's essential for students to be a part of that process, and we want them to feel confident and comfortable with the materials that they are using. And so with Envision, they were not. But it was about half and half, which is, for me, for middle school, that's pretty darn good. If you can find 5th through 8th graders who think that their curriculum materials are interesting and motivating. So we took that as a success. The next piece we asked was, how confident did you feel after using this curriculum? And so it was on a scale, and you can see that they felt fairly confident with Envision, but they felt a lot more confident when it came to using iReady materials. And this was one of the big takeaways that our teachers had after teaching with the iReady materials, is they said students were excited, they felt ready, they did not feel overwhelmed, they felt like they could do what was being asked of them. And that was something, especially for a middle school staff, they hadn't seen that before. And so they were incredibly encouraged and very excited about iReady, and they were in consensus that this was the very best option for PUSD and for our students if we wanted to move them forward. So in the end, after the piloting process, after reviewing all of that data, it was very clear that iReady was the option for the committee. It was a consensus. We had 31 committee members, and every single one of them said, this is the curriculum that we need. It's going to help teachers be successful. It's going to help our students be successful. And so some of that teacher feedback, again, this was, our teachers got to present, you got to hear from them. Again, it was the thoroughness of the topics that were presented and the pacing of how those topics were presented. There was a lot of open-ended questions that allowed for student thought process, that allowed for discussion, that allowed them to think through material a little more critically than what they were used to. There was also opportunities for them to discuss with their peers, so there was a lot of cooperative learning opportunities, and that critical thinking that we saw was really being built throughout every single lesson within the curriculum. They were also very excited that you could teach a lesson within one day. They often found that with Engage New York, which is our current curriculum, that they weren't able to do that. They would have to break a lesson into one or two, but the pacing of how that curriculum came together is something that they were very excited about. Again, it gave them material in a small amount of time that students could really process through, master, and move on to the next piece. And then as with any curriculum adoption, one of our last steps is to put it up for public review. And so here's the information that came from the community having an opportunity to come and view our materials. Those materials were on display both digitally and in print from April 23rd to June 24th. Throughout that time, we did not have a ton of reviews or feedback. But what I can tell you is that we had one of our governing board members who viewed those materials digitally. And then we had all 5 view those materials in person, which was great. And I really appreciate you taking the time to do that and have a good understanding of what it is that we were presenting for you. I didn't have any major concerns through that community feedback process. You were able to see those. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer those. But there was a few questions. We were able to kind of work through and talk through that with one of our board members. But other than that, we did not have a whole lot more feedback. So.
The word understanding for me is a stretch. I don't think understanding, like I told you, I think it was really, having learned math learned math poorly one way, to go back to this was a whole new thing. And I just looked at 5th and 6th grade, and I was out of my element, for sure. So,
but that's part of that understanding process, is to know that math today and what our students are being asked to do is incredibly different from what we were asked to do when we were students.
Right.
They're building math thinkers. They want students who are able to think about things really critically instead of just mimic and do what the steps to a problem. They're understanding why something works.
Okay.
So our next steps, if this is adopted today, would be to get started on that purchasing process so that we can move pretty quickly in order to get materials in time for school to start. And then throughout the year, there'd be 3 training opportunities for our teachers. That would happen in July, right before school starts, another one in August after they've had a chance to use some of the materials, and then again in February to fine-tune their process. So. Any questions, concerns?
Just a couple comments. I did teach middle school math, for any of you who didn't know that, decades and decades ago. So I'm a little familiar with what I'm looking at. I was never a big fan of Engage New York. Honestly, it wasn't my favorite curriculum. I thought it was a little bit too messy. I find this curriculum rigorous. I liked it. Kelsey, I came down 3 times to the DO to look at it, and then Kelsey let me actually take the 8th grade workbook home one weekend so I could reacquaint myself with solving linear equations with 2 variables, which was, so, my husband thought I was crazy, but I was actually having fun. I thought it was delightful but I didn't have that in 8th grade. And I was shocked that our 8th graders would be doing that, because that's pretty advanced. That's algebra. That's way up there. And this is general math in 8th grade. I thought the assessments were good. I thought they asked a lot of the kids. I thought there was a lot of paper pencil. And I thought there was a lot of discussion, which for me, mathematics was wonderful because it was the right answer, but it was more wonderful when different students are able to get to the same answer in a different way. And that's what this program encourages. It encourages you to look at the way to solve a problem, not necessarily just memorizing an algorithm that a lot of us did when we were kids.
Correct.
And it's wonderful to me. It's not just divide fractions as invert and multiply, which we all learned.
Yeah.
But none of us knew why we did that.
Right.
This lets kids go into it and figure out why we do that.
Yeah.
So I am a big fan of this program. I think it's interesting and well worth it and rigorous, and I expect to see good things from this program. I'm excited.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your excitement around it. I don't know if I've ever seen somebody
Linear
so
equations
excited
are
to
so
be like,
fun.
can I please take a workbook home? Yes, absolutely.
I spent all weekend on it, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was not as impressed with the online. I came into the books, still not impressed. I had a meeting with Kelsey and a lot of the teachers, but I saw the curriculum have an opportunity to bring cultural portion in that could be considered put it this way, that I did not appreciate. And Kelsey said that they would not be using that portion, but I feel like since you didn't mention it now, I'm not sure that that's where it's going to go, that once you buy this textbook, that everything is going to be allowable in this textbook for the teachers to use. So, yeah, kind of not just quite happy with it. I did ask that you use it from front to back, and you told me no, you would not, that it would be kind of piecemeal according to standards. And yeah, so those are just my comments.
So were you referring to the STEM stories that were included?
Yes.
Okay. So typically when we adopt a curriculum, we don't remove those pieces that are so embedded. They're in every student workbook. They have exposure to that. So that is part of the curriculum that you would be voting on tonight. If you want to explain more of maybe what those concerns were, because that did not come up from anybody in our committee. That was never a concern. Nobody pointed that out as something that was a red flag. So is there anything more you want to share with that? Because I don't think we can promise that they're not going to be used. I think teachers have so much that they're going to be focusing on that they probably won't use them consistently, but I can't promise that those wouldn't be used because they would be in every student book.
That's correct. Are we talking about that 2-page spread at the beginning of each unit that
Yes,
looks like a
correct.
comic book? For those of you that don't know, it looks like a comic book 2-page spread at the start of
Not
each
all
unit.
of them look like comic books,
Well,
but okay.
It's a graphic
Sort of.
novel.
It's a graphic
idea,
novel,
yeah.
if you want to call that. But what I actually appreciated about that was they had to do with a contemporary mathematician or a near contemporary mathematician and what they did with mathematics. And one of them that I remember specifically was a gal that joined the military, the Navy, and then became involved in designing nuclear submarines. And I thought, that's mathematics for a girl? That's pretty cool. I didn't go through every single one, but I did like that one. But I thought it was just an interesting way to introduce the unit, that this is what you can do with math.
And particularly the math that they're being taught within that unit.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, as a former middle school math teacher, sometimes that was the hardest question to answer when a student says, how am I going to use this? When am I going to use this? How does this apply to me? And that gives them that direct context. So if you have any more to share about that, I'm happy to talk through that. But I can't promise that it's not something that they would use if this was voted on and adopted.
Kelsey, isn't
Isn't it still part of our math standards to teach real-world applications of math as well as people who have professions in math? So
yes, and context, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I believe that's standards aligned, so.
Yeah, and the other piece I would love to just address is why we don't teach a textbook cover to cover anymore is because we don't have time for that, first of all. We're responsible first and foremost for teaching our state standards, and our teachers are piecing them together in a way that makes sense. They put a lot of time and effort into planning out what their year is going to look like, but if they were to teach a textbook from cover to cover, we would never finish that within a year, which means we would be missing out on some of those important concepts. The other piece is that textbooks are not built for Arizona standards. Arizona standards are unique, and so they're built for some larger states that have standards that are more aligned. Arizona uses what they have, but there are some places where we have to supplement. So our teachers do a lot of work to ensure that we are covering every single state standard to the depth that it's required for our state. So that's why we have to piece that together.
One thing I always curious about is when there's multiple ways to arrive at an answer, is it difficult for the teachers to decipher that, like what route they went down, how did they arrive to the answer, is it going to create more, and just how do the teachers feel about that, and is it subjective? I mean, I know the answer is the answer, but can they say, well, you arrived at it, but look at it this way, and I've never graded any, so thank goodness, but yeah. I mean, is it difficult for some to catch, or did you get that feedback?
For some of our veteran teachers, it can be a challenge just because that's not the way that they experienced math or the way that they've thought about math. But once you get in a classroom where you start to hear kids talking about how they're solving problems and how they arrive at the answer, you're hearing multiple different ways of thinking. Now, the teacher is still doing direct instruction and teaching explicit content and explicit strategies that students have. They're building a toolbox that they can pull from. But we know with math, there is not just one pathway to get to an answer. And so sometimes something that works for one student doesn't work for another. Their brain just cannot process through and doesn't think like that, but they get to learn more from each other than just hearing from the teacher going, here's how you solve it. They get to hear multiple different ways and strategies that they can use to get to the same answer. So the more teachers start to implement that, the better that they feel about their teaching, the better and more confident they feel about their students' skills within math.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I have kind of a, I don't know if you can answer this, but
I'll try.
Let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
So when I was working at Embry-Riddle, a number of my students from overseas would come from a teaching system that was more like what we're doing now. Mm-hmm. So it was more collaborative. Yes. Students would come in, especially if we had a group of students from one country, and they would come into a classroom and they would collaborate on their work. And the professors might have an issue with them having all the same answers and showing all the same work that came in, but that's how they were taught to do it.
Right.
And when I've visited classrooms, I see more collaborative work nowadays than what students used to do, especially in math. Correct. That's the big one that really hits my mind, is going into a classroom and seeing 4 students in a pod working on today's lesson.
Right.
So long term, as they go on to college, do we know, is that expectation at the higher level changing? Are students now is that type of problem solving being accepted? Because it is what happens in business, for sure. It is what happens in engineering. You have a team and you all work together.
Right.
But at a university, it was very structured. It was very, you do it this way, and there's only one way to do it, and that's the right way, and it's my way.
Right.
So I'm just curious if you're hearing, is that changing, and is that attitude changing at the higher levels if students move on?
I can't say definitively without being there, without knowing all of those systems, but my guess is yes. Where you started to see a lot more collaborative work come in, not just within math, but other areas, was with the push with Common Core. And I know that there's some different varying opinions on Common Core, but what they said was we need skills for our students to be successful after they leave high school. And that was one of those things. Yes, in the real world, you are collaborating with other people. It's very rare that you're just sitting in isolation working by yourself, but they wanted people who could problem solve, critical think, work as teams. But it is a balance, especially in our schools. It has to be a balance. We need that collaborative process where students can learn from each other and they can process and they can think and they have opportunities to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes and keep improving. But we still have individual accountability built in, and that's through our assessments to make sure that students are understanding and retaining the information that we know that they're going to need to be successful. So we're looking at both pieces of that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? All right, I'll take a motion to consider adopting the 5th through 8th grade math curriculum.
I will make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
So motion is seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
We have, motion passes 3-1.
Thank you very much for passing that on behalf of our committee. I know this was a lot of work, so thank you very much for that.
Okay. Item 8C7, consider adopting the proposed changes in governing board policies BEDB agenda and BEDB-E agenda exhibit as presented. Andy.
Yeah. So this policy change proposal is about the governing board agenda itself. This is the second reading, but we've actually brought it to the board 3 times to discuss. What started as looking at some minor changes. We kind of heard what the board recommendations were, looked at best practices, looked at what open meeting laws say, and crafted this revised agenda. Some of it is very minor with just some things being shifted around. I would say the 2 more somewhat significant changes were, again, I think this was something Cara may have recommended, but the community comments section, rather than coming at the end of the agenda, being moved earlier in the agenda, and that way it kind of fits in to when we're discussing different things from the community. And then the other item was a request for future agenda items coming at the end rather than just kind of sprinkled out throughout the agenda. The other changes were really just, like I said, to reflect what common practices are with this board and best practices overall. So, any questions on that?
Is that the format that we were using for this agenda?
For today's agenda?
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Okay.
I mean, it's similar because, again, we tried to change this agenda, the new policy agenda, to what we've been doing as much as possible, but we did make those couple of changes I just mentioned. So very similar, but a couple of changes. Like I said, the community comments in today's agenda will be at the end of the meeting. In future agendas, if this is approved, would come earlier in the agenda.
Okay. I just have one thing. I just wanted to make it. On this one, we don't have an A. Like, we start at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then when we were all confused and Stan was trying to say number 8, we ended up with B and C. So somehow if we could just clarify that so that we're not all confused.
I had that question as well.
Okay.
So it was misnumbered, is that what we're saying?
I don't, it went from numbers to letters, and there weren't any. It might be that 1 through 7 were all in section, no, they can't be A. So, yeah.
I'm not sure which section you're referring to.
Okay. Okay.
Would it help to look at the exhibit? One of the things we did was create that exhibit so it is kind of a little more clear rather than all the wording of the policy itself.
Okay, so, yeah, we have A, B, C, D, and then we just have to make sure where the consent agenda is.
The 7A.
Okay, so the consent agenda has numbers, but we didn't have any letters above that on our agenda today. We just had A, B, yeah.
Yeah, I can see what you, so we write them in to just stay afloat, if you will.
Okay,
right?
I will talk to Sarah afterwards, and I'm sure that this is correct. We just need to get this.
Yeah, I could
so
see
it's
that.
not so confusing.
So So in just having 6 here, we would say 8C, just so we could follow along a little bit. I think it's formatting that we could help.
Yeah, it was just formatting, it's not.
Section,
Yeah.
but then it's different.
Yeah. But on our policy, it's letters, and we have numbers, so just to make sure that we switch that out.
Okay. Right, the policy, the way it's written with the ABCDE, that's to remain consistent with the format of all of our other policies. They're not numbered, they're lettered there. But as Andy suggests, if you look at the exhibit, it shows how an agenda would go. I think you'll see numbers there. And you do bring up a good point with A being action items, and then we've got A1 and A1, 2, and whatnot. It would be useful to say 8C6 is this, 8C7.
Okay,
It's
so
difficult to
I
reference
see
back
the-
several pages.
Yeah.
So that's a real quick, easy
So-
formatting thing that we can change for you.
Yeah,
I like
so
that
it's-
suggestion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. That's
Sorry.
great. That's well done. Thank you. All right, anything else on that one? Okay. I'll consider adopting a motion to adopt the proposed changes in governing board policies BEDB agenda and BEDB-E agenda exhibits.
I will make that motion.
Second.
Motion is seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, motion passes. Moving on to 8D, information discussion items. 8D1, Mr. Moore. You prepared the school board summary budget.
Yes, as presented. This is actually July's will be the last time you'll see fiscal year 24, and it'll be the end balances. So this is the second time you'll see last school year's spending, although we can continue to pay bills all the way up to August 30th. So the next board meeting, you'll kind of see where our funds ended.
I just have one question, I guess, or request. We get a lot of federal and state grants, and maybe I'm the only one who thinks that federal and state grants come with some kind of monitoring system or some kind of what we would call strings as to how the money is spent.
Yes.
Is there any way that you could just send us like what those requirements are?
Yes.
For each of the grants?
They all come restrictions, so we can, here's the grant, here's the way the money has to be spent.
Okay.
Are you looking for, this
Yeah.
money can only be spent on remediation services? to
Yeah, and
address
it
learning?
would
Yes.
just make it clear
Absolutely.
for me. Thank you.
You know what, I'll do that, I'll start that in the new fiscal year.
That would be
Because most of these, a lot of these are going away because they were COVID related.
Okay, thank you.
But that's a great idea.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any further discussion? All right, 8D2, emergency procurement discussion. Mr. Moore.
All right. This goes back to the trust fix at Abaya Judd. We ended up with the school facilities division saying, you know what, we think we can find the money. Enough grants closed and freed up money because they didn't spend as much. But that put procurement into an issue. Because it was over 100,000, we either had to use a company on a consortium or a state contract, those that you just approved, or go out to bid. And we reached out, and we had one company that didn't have a large enough bond in order to cover it. This was a significant fix. You needed a $2 million bond in order to do it. Going out to bid would put us into this meeting even saying, yes, we're accepting this bid. Work wouldn't then start until July. We would be fixing it a year from now. So I contacted our auditors and I said, what about an emergency procurement? Every year at this meeting in the consent item, you authorize certain people to go into an emergency procurement protocol that's outlined in statute, the administrative regulations, and safety of students and the educational learning environment and the library not being accessible to them, and the safety that the roof was causing, because having it shored up, shoring is temporary, for a year poses a problem as well. And so I got approval that we could use emergency procurement, but it says if you can have a governing board meeting before you engage, you should, as best practice, to approve the emergency procurement. We were day to day on getting the School Facilities Board Division to approve it. We didn't have time. So the other is bring it to the next governing board meeting, express why you couldn't go through typical procurement protocols, is what I explained, and write a letter to the governing board explaining what was the process, what was the situation, and the letter was, I believe, attached to this, yes. So you should have been able to review that. This discussion and answering questions is part of that regulation, and so I'm here to answer any questions about why we needed to go through that protocol and or how it worked. And really, this discussion allows us to get the trusses done.
There's a ton of laws and regulations around procurement for school districts. If we were a charter school, Stan would just ask his brother, hey, you want to fix this? We'll pay you whatever you want. And that's the way it would work.
Stan could fix it.
Yeah, Stan
And
could
pay
fix it
himself.
himself and we could pay him. That's not the way it works for us. There's a ton of T's we have to cross and I's we have to dot, and this is one of those for sure.
Any further discussion?
No, I'm glad they're getting fixed. It's
Yeah.
getting fixed.
We've only, in my tenure in this position, only used emergency procurement protocols once, and that was at the beginning of COVID to get all the plexiglass that we needed to bring the students safely back, and now we're using it again 4 years later.
Thanks for finding that, or doing it that
It was
way.
a Hail Mary, to be really honest.
Yeah.
We had one company that said, yes, we can do it, in the timeline you're saying. Otherwise, we would not have had it open. It would not have been safe to fix during the school year.
Wow. Brian Moore magic.
Nah.
All right, moving on to 8D3. Are there any community comments shared to the board? Further? All right, 8D4. So our next meeting is July 9th, just a few weeks from now. We'll start at 5 o'clock. Kind of go over, this is not set in stone yet, right? This is about the 5 o'clock and the 5:15.
Yeah, the board has asked for us to do at least 3 months of the 15-minute study session. We should have enough time to do it this next time. If the board president or 2 members of the board want to shift from our normal procedure, we can certainly do that.
Okay. Regardless, we're starting at 5 o'clock, whether, okay.
Maybe this isn't the time, but we have a board meeting on election night. Do we need to, I mean, are we going to?
No, it's not election night.
November 5th.
Oh, November 5th. Yes, we
I don't
always
know when
do.
we should bring that up or not, but.
Yeah, great question. Annually, that's the case, because we
always-
shoot
That's party
for our
night.
first Tuesday, and that's been the case the last several years that I can
Yeah.
remember. If the board wants to shift that date in November, we can certainly discuss that at this meeting or any upcoming meeting to shift the date to a Monday or the next week or the previous week. It's totally up to you.
But we
All right.
have had it before.
Nothing else, we'll adjourn.
Seems kind of